Have you ever noticed how the world becomes quiet when you truly listen? Not just to the sounds around you, but to the space between the sounds, to the silence that holds everything together. In this moment, as these words reach you, there is something deeper happening than mere communication. There is a meeting of hearts, a recognition of the truth that lives within you, waiting to be remembered. Your breath moves in and out without your effort. Your heart beats without your command. Life flows through you like a gentle river. And yet somewhere along the way, you learn to fight against this natural flow. You learn to speak words that did not come from the river of your being, but from the shallow pools of fear, doubt, and the need to survive in a world that seemed to demand you be someone other than who you are. Right now, in this sacred pause, you have the opportunity to return home to yourself, not to a place you have never been, but to the truth you have always known, the truth that your voice, your authentic expression, is not separate from the divine force that moves the stars and grows the flowers. Your word is not just sound vibrating through air. Your word is creative power itself, the same power that spoke the universe into existence. Notice this moment. Breathe into the space between your thoughts. Feel the aliveness that pulses through your being. This aliveness knows no lies. It knows no pretense. It simply is, and it is you, beyond all the stories you have been told about who you should be. For most of your life, you have been living in a dream. Not the dreams that come when you sleep, but the dream of the planet, the collective story that says love must be earned, that you must prove your worth, that you must speak in ways that make others comfortable, even if it makes you disappear. This dream began when you were small, innocent, open like a flower, reaching toward the sun. In those early years, you spoke from your heart naturally. You expressed wonder, joy, sadness, and truth without filter. But slowly, you learned that some expressions brought smiles and approval, while others brought frowns, punishment, or the terrible silence of love withdrawn. You began to notice that when you said certain things, the adults around you relaxed. When you said other things, tension filled the air like smoke. So you learned to read the room before you spoke. You learned to scan faces for approval before you shared your truth. You discovered that love seemed to come with conditions, and one of the biggest conditions was speaking in ways that kept others comfortable, even if it meant betraying the voice of your own heart. You were not born knowing how to lie. You were taught. You were not born knowing how to please others at the expense of your truth. You learned this as a survival skill in a world where authentic expression sometimes felt dangerous. The innocent child within you adapted as children do because love and belonging felt like life itself. But what you inherited was not just the ability to speak carefully. You inherited an entire language system built on judgment, comparison, and fear. Like a single candle lit in a dark room, your authentic expression illuminates the possibility for others to be real too. You become living proof that it's possible to be honest and still be loved, to be authentic and still belong, to speak truth and still find peace. Most people are waiting for permission to be themselves. They are watching to see if anyone else has the courage to step out of the collective dream of people-pleasing and performance. When you speak from your heart consistently, you give that permission. You show others that authenticity is not only possible, but beautiful. Your courage to disappoint others in service of your truth gives others courage to do the same. Your willingness to be vulnerable gives others permission to drop their masks. Your commitment to speaking only what serves love and truth creates space for more love and truth to flourish in the world. Think of the people in your life who have impacted you most deeply. They were probably not the ones who told you what you wanted to hear, but the ones who spoke honestly from their hearts. They were not perfect, but they were real. They did not pretend to have all the answers, but they shared their authentic questions. They gave you the gift of their true presence, and this gift awakened something true in you. This is the gift you offer when you speak authentically. You remind others of their own capacity for truth. You reflect back their own beauty, their own wisdom, their own courage to be real. You become a mirror in which they can see their authentic selves instead of their performed selves. The healing that spreads from one person's commitment to authentic expression is immeasurable. Families begin to have real conversations instead of surface pleasantries. Workplaces become environments where creativity and honesty can flourish. Communities develop deeper connections based on truth there than pretense. You may never know the full impact of your choice to speak from your heart. The person who hears you express a difficult truth with love may find the courage to do the same in their own life. The moment you choose authenticity over approval may be the moment someone else realizes they have the same choice. Your willingness to be real in a world of performance becomes a gift to all of humanity. This is how the world changes, not through grand gestures or dramatic proclamations, but through ordinary people making the extraordinary choice to speak truth with love. This is how healing happens. One authentic conversation at a time, one honest expression at a time, one courageous moment of truth at a time. Consider how this truth resonates within you. Write your reflections if you feel called. Feel into the responsibility and the privilege of having a voice in this world. Notice how your authentic expression contributes to the healing of all life. You are not just speaking words when you choose authenticity. You are speaking love into existence. You are speaking healing into being. You are speaking a new world into reality, one conversation at a time. And so we return to where we began, to this moment, to this breath, to this opportunity to choose. You have always had the power to speak from your heart. You have always been free to express your truth. The only thing that was ever needed was your willingness to remember, to choose, to begin again. Your word is your gift to the world, not because you have all the answers, but because you have your unique piece of the truth. Not because you are perfect, but because you are real. Not because you never make mistakes, but because you are willing to speak from love instead of fear. In this moment, you can choose to let your voice be an instrument of healing rather than harm, of connection rather than separation, of love rather than fear. In this moment, you can decide to speak only what serves the highest good of all. In this moment, you can begin the practice of being impeccable with your word. The world is waiting for your authentic voice, not the voice that tries to please everyone, but the voice that speaks from the deep well of your heart. Not the voice that seeks approval, but the voice that offers truth. Not the voice that fears judgment, but the voice that chooses love. This is your invitation, not to perfection, but to authenticity. Not to having all the answers, but to speaking from the questions that live in your heart. Not to changing the world, but to letting the world be changed through your willingness to be true. Listen with your heart, speak from your heart, love with your heart. This is the way home to yourself. This is the way home to love. This is the way home to the truth that has always been waiting for you to remember. You are already free. You have always been free, and your freedom begins with the words you choose to speak. You learn to use words the way the adults use them, not as expressions of love, but as tools to control, to defend, to attack, to hide. You absorb the way of speaking that came from generations of people who had also forgotten their own authentic voice. Consider how this truth resonates within you. Write your reflections if you feel called. Notice where in your body you feel the recognition of this forgetting, this learning to speak from fear rather than love. The words you learned to speak became like invisible chains. Every time you said, "I'm fine," when you were not fine, you moved further away from your truth. Every time you agreed when you disagreed, smiled when you wanted to cry, or stayed silent when your heart wanted to sing, you practiced abandoning yourself. Not because you were wrong, but because you were surviving in the only way you knew how. And now, here you are, perhaps wondering why relationships feel difficult, why communication often leads to misunderstanding, why you sometimes feel empty after conversations even when they seem to go well. The answer is simple, though not always easy to accept. You have been speaking a language that is not your own. You have been using words that come from the wound of not feeling worthy, rather than from the wholeness of your being. Now we come to something that may be uncomfortable to see, yet necessary for your freedom. Look honestly at the words you speak and the words you consume. Notice how often conversation becomes a way to spread poison, to judge others, to make yourself feel better by making someone else wrong. Watch how easily gossip flows from your lips when you feel small inside. See how quickly you join in when others are being criticized, as if their diminishment somehow adds to your worth. Observe how you sometimes use words like arrows aimed at the tender places in others because your own tender places are aching. This is not about shame. This is about awakening. You learn to speak poison because you were taught that this was normal, that this was how people communicate. You learn to accept poison from others because you believed their opinions about you were more important than your own knowing about yourself. Every critical word you speak about another person is poison you release into the world. Every harsh judgment you make about yourself is poison you drink. Every piece of gossip you share or consume is like eating from a plate of food that has been contaminated. It may taste interesting in the moment, but it sickens your spirit. The mind that learned to speak poison is like a radio that has been tuned to a station full of static and noise. You have become so accustomed to this frequency that you have forgotten what clear music sounds like. You have forgotten that there is another way to use your voice, another way to choose your words. When you take things personally, when you believe that what others say about you defines who you are drinking poison that was never meant for you. Their words come from their own dream, their own wounds, their own conditioning. But you have made yourself into a sponge, absorbing everything as if it were truth about you. Notice how this pattern lives in your daily life. Feel into the exhaustion that comes from constantly defending yourself, explaining yourself, trying to control how others see you. This exhaustion is your spirit calling you home to a different way of being. Every word carries energy. Every sentence you speak or hear contains either the frequency of love or the frequency of fear. Love words create harmony, healing, connection. Fear words create separation, judgment, pain. You have been swimming in an ocean of fear words for so long that you have forgotten what it feels like to speak and hear only love. But here is the miracle that awaits your recognition. You have the power to choose. In this moment, you can begin to notice which energy your words carry. You can start to feel the difference between speaking from your wounds and speaking from your wholeness. You can learn to recognize poison before you speak it or accept it. The heart knows no lies. The heart speaks only truth, only love, only what serves the highest good of all. But you have been listening to other voices, the voices of your conditioning, your fears, your desperate need to belong, even at the cost of your authenticity. Take a moment now to place your hand on your heart. Feel the steady rhythm that has been with you since before your first breath. This rhythm knows who you are beneath all the stories. This rhythm has never forgotten your true nature. This is where your authentic voice lives, waiting for you to remember how to listen, how to trust, how to speak from this place of knowing rather than from the place of fear. When you begin to recognize that your word is not just sound but creative force itself, everything changes. The ancient ones understood this. They knew that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. This is not religious doctrine. This is the deepest truth about your nature. You are a creator, and your tool of creation is your word. Every thought you think is a word you speak to yourself. Every belief you hold is a word you have repeated until it became your reality. Every story you tell about your life is a spell you cast upon your future. You have been creating your world with your words without even knowing it, like a painter who doesn't realize they hold a brush. Look at your life right now. Look at your relationships, your work, your health, your sense of peace or lack of peace. All of it has been shaped by the words you have spoken and the words you have accepted as truth. If your life feels heavy with struggle, look at the words you use to describe yourself and your possibilities. If your relationships feel difficult, listen to how you speak about others and how you allow others to speak about you. You are always creating with your word, but most of the time you are creating unconsciously, repeating patterns that were given to you by others who were also creating unconsciously. You learn to say, I'm not good enough so many times that you made it true in your experience. You learn to say life is hard so often that you created a life of hardship. You learn to speak about love as something rare and conditional, and so love became rare and conditional in your world. But here is the power that has always been yours. You can change the words you speak. You can choose thoughts that serve your happiness rather than your suffering. You can learn to speak words that create beauty, harmony, love, and freedom instead of words that create struggle, separation, and pain. Being impeccable with your word means using your creative power in the direction of truth and love. It means speaking only what you really mean, only what serves the highest good, only what comes from your authentic heart. It means no longer using your word against yourself or against others. It means treating your voice as the sacred gift it is. When you are impeccable with your word, you stop participating in the dream of suffering that most humans share. You stop adding to the collective pool of judgment, criticism, and fear. Instead, you become a source of healing, a voice of love in a world that has forgotten how to speak from the heart. Consider how this truth resonates within you. Write your reflections if you feel called. Notice what happens in your body when you imagine speaking only truth, only love, only what serves the highest good of all. Imagine your heart as a deep well of crystal clear water. This water has never been polluted by the opinions of others, never been contaminated by the fears of the world. Every time you speak from this place, you offer the purest gift you have to give. Every time you choose words that come from this wellspring of love, you remember who you really are. But most of the time, you speak from the muddy puddles of your mind. The mind is like a library filled with books you didn't write, stories about who you should be and what you say to be accepted, loved, or safe. These books were written by your parents, your teachers, your culture, your past experiences of pain and pleasure. They are not you. Your heart knows the difference. Your heart can feel when words are coming from love and when they are coming from fear. Your heart can sense when you are speaking your truth and when you are repeating someone else's story about you. But you have learned to listen to the loud voice of the mind and ignore the gentle whisper of the heart. The voice of the heart does not argue. It does not defend. It does not try to convince anyone of anything. It simply speaks truth, and truth needs no justification. When you speak from your heart, there is a quality of peace in your words, even when you are saying something difficult. There is a kindness that flows through your voice, even when you are setting a boundary. The voice of the mind, however, is always trying to prove something. It speaks from the need to be right, to win, to control how others see you. It uses words as weapons to defend the stories it believes about you. It creates drama, conflict, and confusion because it believes that your survival depends on convincing others that your version of reality is correct. Learning to distinguish between these two voices is like learning to taste the difference between pure spring water and water that has been mixed with salt. At first you might not notice, but as you become more sensitive, more aware, the difference becomes obvious. The heart voice brings peace, the mind voice brings agitation. Start with small moments. Before you speak, pause and ask yourself, is this coming from my heart or from my programming? Feel into your body. Notice if there is tension, urgency, or a need to prove something. These are signs that the mind is preparing to speak. Notice if there is calmness, love, or a simple desire to share truth. These are signs that the heart is ready to express itself. You have spent so much energy trying to be right. Write about your opinions, write about your judgments, write about your story of how things should be. You have turned conversations into battlefields where someone must win and someone must lose. You have made your relationships into courts where you are constantly building a case for your innocence and the other person's guilt. But what if being right is not the point? What if winning arguments actually means losing connection? What if the need to prove your point is just another way of trying to feel safe in an uncertain world? The ego, that part of you that believes you are separate from life itself, uses words as weapons. It speaks to attack when it feels threatened, to defend when it feels criticized, to manipulate when it wants something. The ego believes that if it can just find the right words, it can control what others think about you, and if it can control what others think, you will finally be safe. But you are already safe, not because you can convince others that you are right, but because your true nature can never be threatened by anyone's opinions or words. You are already whole, not because you win arguments, but because your wholeness exists independent of anyone else's approval or disapproval. When you release the need to be right, you discover something beautiful. You can speak your truth without attachment to whether others accept it. You can share your perspective without needing to change anyone's mind. You can express your feelings without requiring others to validate them. This is true freedom. Not the freedom to control others through your words, but the freedom to be authentic regardless of how others respond. When you no longer need to be right, your words become offerings instead of demands. Your communication becomes a gift instead of a strategy. Notice how much energy you spend trying to convince others that your way of seeing is correct. Feel the exhaustion that comes from constantly defending your position, explaining your choices, justifying your feelings. This exhaustion is your spirit telling you that there is another way. The heart never argues because the heart knows that truth doesn't need defense. Love doesn't need to prove itself. Authenticity doesn't require anyone's permission or approval. When you speak from this place of knowing, your words carry a different energy. They create connection instead of separation, understanding instead of conflict, peace instead of war. This doesn't mean you become passive or that you never disagree with others. It means you can share your truth, set your boundaries, and express your needs without making others wrong for having different needs, different truths, different boundaries. You can stand in your power without diminishing anyone else's power. Perhaps the most frightening thing you will ever do is speak your truth when you know it will disappoint someone you love. You have spent your whole life learning that love equals approval, that connection requires agreement, that peace depends on making others happy. And now here you are, discovering that the very thing you thought would destroy your relationships might actually be what saves them. The fear of disappointing others runs so deep that you would rather betray yourself than risk someone's displeasure. You have made yourself small to make others comfortable. You have said yes when you meant no, smiled when you wanted to cry, agreed when your heart was screaming in disagreement. You have become an expert at reading what others want to hear and giving them exactly that, even when it costs you your truth. But what is the price of this people-pleasing? Look honestly at your relationships. Are they built on who you really are or on who you think you need to be to keep others happy? Do people love you or do they love the performance you give them? When you are always agreeing, always accommodating, always making others comfortable, who is loving the real you? The person who cannot tolerate your authentic expression is asking you to disappear so they can feel comfortable. They're asking you to sacrifice your truth on the altar of their preferences. They're asking you to love them more than you love yourself. This is not love. This is fear. Ring the mask of love. True love does not require you to abandon yourself. True love celebrates your authenticity even when it's inconvenient. True love can hold disagreement without demanding uniformity. True love says, I see you, I honor you, even when we see things differently. When you speak your truth and someone responds with anger, manipulation, or withdrawal of love, they are showing you who they really are. They are revealing that their love was conditional, that their affection depended on your willingness to be less than authentic. This is painful to see, but it is also a gift. It shows you which relationships are based on truth and which are based on performance. Consider how this truth resonates within you. Write your reflections if you feel called. Notice where in your body you feel the fear of disappointing others. Feel into the places where you have made yourself small to keep others comfortable. The courage to disappoint others is actually the courage to love them authentically. When you stop trying to control their feelings by managing your expression, you give them the opportunity to love the real you. When you stop protecting them from your truth, you invite them into genuine relationship instead of comfortable fantasy. Some people will not be able to handle your authenticity. Some relationships will end when you stop performing and start being real. This is not a failure. This is life naturally reorganizing itself around truth instead of illusion. The people who truly belong in your life will celebrate your courage to be authentic. They will respect your boundaries, appreciate your honesty, and love you more for your willingness to be real. You are not responsible for other people's emotional reactions to your truth. You are not responsible for managing their comfort by sacrificing your authenticity. Your job is not to make others happy. Your job is to be true to yourself and to express that truth with love and respect. This doesn't mean you speak your truth cruelly or without consideration for others. You can be authentic and kind. You can be honest and respectful. You can set boundaries and still hold love in your heart. But you cannot make your truth smaller to accommodate other people's inability to handle reality. When you finally find the courage to disappoint others by being yourself, something magical happens. You discover that you actually serve others better by being authentic than by being pleasing. You give them permission to be real too. You show them that love can exist without performance, that relationships can thrive on truth instead of pretense. The fear of disappointing others is really the fear of being alone. But when you try to avoid aloneness by being someone you're not, you create the very isolation you're trying to escape. You end up surrounded by people who don't really know you, loved for a performance that exhausts your spirit. This is the loneliest kind of aloneness, being surrounded by people who love an image of you rather than your true self. Your words are medicine. Every time you speak, you have the choice to offer healing or to spread sickness. Every conversation is an opportunity to bring more love into the world or to add to the world's collection of wounds. Every sentence you speak can be a prayer of blessing or a curse of judgment. When you understand that your words have this power, speaking becomes a sacred act. You begin to choose your words the way a doctor chooses medicine, carefully, intentionally, with awareness of their effect. You start to feel the responsibility and the privilege of having a voice in this world. Most people use words carelessly, like throwing stones without noticing where they land. They speak their irritation, their judgments, their fears, without considering the impact on the hearts that receive these words. They treat communication like a garbage dump where they can dispose of all their emotional waste. But you can choose differently. You can make your words into healing balm for the wounds of the world. You can speak appreciation instead of criticism, understanding instead of judgment, encouragement instead of discouragement. You can offer your voice as a gift of love rather than an expression of your unhealed pain. Think of someone whose words have healed something in you. Remember how it felt to receive communication that blessed rather than cursed, that built rather than destroyed, that honored rather than diminished. You have the same power. Your voice can be medicine for others the way their voice was medicine for you. When you speak words of appreciation, you water the seeds of goodness in others. When you express genuine understanding, you help heal the isolation that most people carry. When you offer encouragement, you remind others of their own strength and beauty. Your words become prayers that invoke the highest in everyone you encounter. This doesn't mean you only speak sweet words or that you avoid difficult conversations. Sometimes the most healing thing you can say is a hard truth spoken with love. Sometimes the greatest medicine you can offer is an honest boundary set with kindness. Sometimes the most powerful prayer is saying no to what doesn't serve so you can say yes to what does. The key is the energy behind your words. Are you speaking from love or from fear? Are you trying to heal or to hurt? Are you offering a gift or making a demand? Your intention shapes the energy of your words, and this energy is what determines whether your words become medicine or poison. When you make your communication into prayer, you naturally speak more slowly, more thoughtfully. You pause before reacting. You choose your words with care. You speak from the silence within you rather than from the noise of your emotions. You become someone who brings peace wherever you go, not because you avoid conflict, but because you handle conflict with love. Consider how this truth resonates within you. Write your reflections if you feel called. Notice how your words affect others. Feel into the power you have to heal or to harm with what you choose to express. Even in moments of anger or frustration, you can speak medicine instead of poison. You can express your feelings without attacking the other person. You can share your needs without making others wrong for having different needs. You can set boundaries without building walls. This is the art of speaking truth with love. Now comes the integration, the daily practice of living what you have remembered. It is one thing to understand that your word is creative power. It is another thing to consistently create beauty, love, and truth in every moment of your daily life. This is where the real transformation happens, not in the understanding, but in the living. Every morning you wake up with a choice. You can speak the old language of fear, judgment, and people-pleasing, or you can practice the new language of love, truth, and authenticity. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to practice speaking from your heart instead of from your programming. At first, this practice feels awkward. You catch yourself halfway through an old pattern of speaking. You notice you've just said something that wasn't quite true or accepted something that didn't feel right. This is normal. This is how change happens. With awareness, with gentle correction, with compassion for yourself as you learn a new way of being. The old habits of communication are like well-worn paths through the forest of your mind. You can walk these paths without thinking because you've traveled them so many times. Creating new patterns of authentic expression is like creating new paths. At first you have to pay attention to every step, but with practice these new pathways become just as natural as the old ones. In your relationships, this practice means learning to say, I don't know, when you don't know, instead of pretending to have answers you don't have. It means expressing your feelings honestly instead of hiding them to keep peace. It means asking for what you need instead of hoping others will guess. It means saying no when you mean no, even when others prefer to hear yes. At work, living your truth might mean speaking up in meetings when you have something valuable to contribute, instead of staying quiet to avoid attention. It might mean having honest conversations about workload, boundaries, or values instead of silently resenting what you haven't expressed. It might mean aligning your work with your authentic values instead of just doing what pays the bills. In all your interactions, this practice invites you to pause before speaking and ask, is this true? Is this necessary? Is this kind? These 3 questions become your guidepost for impeccable communication. If what you're about to say is true, necessary, and kind, speak it. If not, choose different words or choose silence. This doesn't mean you become perfect overnight. It means you become conscious. You start noticing your patterns. You catch yourself when you slip into old ways of speaking. You gently redirect yourself back to authenticity. You treat each moment as a new opportunity to practice love. The most beautiful thing about this practice is that it transforms not just your communication, but your entire experience of life. When you consistently speak truth, you start living truth. When you express your authentic feelings, you start feeling more authentic. When you set healthy boundaries with your words, you create a healthier life. Notice how your inner world changes as your outer expression becomes more authentic. Feel how much energy you have when you're not constantly managing other people's reactions to your truth. Observe how your relationships deepen when they're built on who you really are, instead of who you think you should be. This practice ripples out into every area of your existence. The courage you develop in speaking authentically gives you courage to live authentically. The self-respect you build by honoring your truth creates deeper self-love. The clarity you gain from honest communication brings clarity to all your choices. When you commit to speaking from your heart, you discover that you were never broken. You were just speaking a language that wasn't yours, expressing thoughts that didn't belong to you, trying to live someone else's version of your life. Coming home to your authentic voice is coming home to yourself. Something beautiful happens when one person decides to speak authentically in a world full of pretense.